footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Memory Hunters of the playbook. Bring you my 2012 NFL mock draft. This is the March edition, and as always, we're going to start off by looking at some mock draft rules. Rule number 1, picks are based off my own logic, no trades, no psychic guesstimations, and no total disregard for common sense. 2, picks are based off my own rankings of the prospects, no Me Too analysis of this way. And finally, picks are based off if I were the GM, my own assessment of your team's strengths and weaknesses. I'm probably the best GM your team ever had. Disregard that last statement, that's just me being silly. The Colts are on the clock with the first pick, and they can go RG3 with this pick, but I'm giving them Andrew Luck, the number 1 quarterback prospect in this draft, in my opinion. This guy's going to help keep this team headed in the right direction for the next decade and a half, like Peyton Manning did. He brings all the skill set to the table, and if they can get weapons around him, they're going to be fine. You look at the Redskins trading up to the 2nd pick, and they're going to get their guy, Robert Griffin III. What I like most about RG3 is his ability to combine all of his skill sets on the playing field. You see some guys that can throw the football very hard but not as accurate. Some guys are accurate and doesn't have that arm strength. RG3 has everything that you want in a quarterback: the arm strength, the accuracy, the athleticism. This guy's going to be a stud for the Redskins. Armed with the 3rd overall pick, the Minnesota Vikings can go with receiver. They can go in the secondary. But I'm going to go with the offensive lineman, Matt Khalil, the consensus number 1 tackle prospect in this draft. This guy is going to be a fixture on that offensive line to help protect Christian Ponder and or Joe Webb, whoever's going to be back there in the backfield. He's also going to do a great job of clearing open running lanes on the left side for the talented tailbacks they have back there in the backfield. The Browns have 2 first-round selections this year, and let's go with the 4th pick. I'm going with Justin Blackmon. I could go with Trent Richardson, but I think Justin Blackmon is a better value pick right here for the Browns. They have to get weapons around Colt McCoy. Blackmon is a guy that's a tremendous playmaker, explosive after the catch, and has the hands that you want out that position. You look at Tampa next on the clock with the 5th pick. Greg Schiano's down there. He's going to go defense, I believe. Morris Claiborne, the best cornerback in this draft. You look at what he brings to the table: long arms, ball skills, and the ability to come up and make a tackle. He's going to help out that defense. You team him up with Aqib Talib in the secondary, which was a weakness last year, will look to be a strength. Whether or not Rondé Barber returns or retires, they have to get younger, and Morris Claiborne gives them great value and skill set at the number 5th pick. As a result of the trade with the Washington Redskins, the Rams own the 6th pick, and I think they addressed their offensive line. Knowing Jeff Fisher, he's going to want to strengthen that O-line and D-line, and Riley Reif is a guy out of Iowa that does a great job of playing interior and exterior. He could be a left or right tackle, so that type of versatility is going to help Sam Bradford stay upright and get the ball downfield to those receivers. So I don't think they address receiver with this pick. I actually like their receivers. I think they're very solid. So I think they just have to protect up front and open up more holes for Steven Jackson and give Bradford, like I said, more time back there in the pocket. The Jags are next up on the clock, and I'm going with wide receiver Alshon Jeffrey. Reason why I'm very high on this guy: number 1, 2, he has the great hands, also has the skill set, the body control, and the physicality after the catch. It also allows the Jaguars to move their newly signed wide receiver Lauren Robinson to a more natural number 2. It also allows Mike Thomas to move to a natural number 3 in the slot, and now it gives the quarterbacks of the Jaguars, Chad Henne and also Gabbard, weapons out there on the flanks, and there should be no reason why that Jaguars offense shouldn't be more explosive this season. The Dolphins are next up, and I think they have to replace Brandon Marshall, whom they traded to the Bears. Michael Floyd is a guy that I really like. He has Brandon Marshall type ability as far as after the catch. Once he gets that football in his hands, he has that running back mentality. He looks to score. I like that a lot about him. I think he's going to do fine down there in South Florida. The Panthers are on the clock, and I'm going with the offensive lineman, David DeCastro, guard out of Stanford. I'm not ready to give up on those 2 interior defensive tackles they drafted last season, and you have to look at the fact that the Panthers defense will get healthier in 2012, so you have to strengthen the interior of that offensive line, and DeCastro is a guy, as a guard, has top 10 ability, and that's why I have him going to the Panthers with the selection. Help continue to bolster that offense and keep Cam Newton well protected and keep that running game on pace. The Bills own the 10th pick in the draft, and they've addressed their defensive needs with Mario Williams. They addressed the defensive line with that signing. I'm going with the offensive line, and they need a tackle. That's why I'm giving them Jonathan Martin out of Stanford. What I like most about him is the way he attacks the running game and also his versatility. He can play left or right tackle, and that's a plus for Buffalo, especially in Chan Gailey's offense. They need a guy that can be a bookend on either side. The Kansas City Chiefs are next up, and they've addressed their offensive line needs with the signing of Eric Winston. So I'm going defense. Luke Kuechly out of Boston College. What I like most about him is that he's aggressive. He's a cerebral guy, a guy that does well in pass coverage, and he makes a lot of tackles. Now you look at that linebacking core of the Kansas City Chiefs with Justin Houston, Tom Lee, Derek Johnson. You add Kuechly in there. These guys are going to be a force to be reckoned with. Probably one of the best young linebacking cores in the NFL. The Seattle Seahawks are next up on the clock, and I have to give them a defensive stud in Melvin Ingram. This guy can play defensive end in the 4-3, outside linebacker in the 3-4. He has that type of versatility. Don't let the size fool you. He is virtually unblockable, lives in the backfield. I think that is something that the Seahawks defense can use. Let's keep in mind that the Seahawks defense was very stout last season, so you just add another defensive stalwart to that side of the football, and they're going to be even better this year and one of the contenders in the NFC West and possibly one of the better defenses in the league overall. Staying in the NFC West, the Arizona Cardinals are next up on the clock, and I'm giving them cornerback Stephon Gilmore out of South Carolina. Great all-around player, good football, situational awareness, and that's something that lacks in the NFL these days. You see right there, not giving up inside position on the goal line, and also he's a very solid tackler. I think he'll be a great complement opposite of Patrick Peterson. Next up are the Dallas Cowboys, and they've addressed their secondary needs with cornerback Brandon Carr and safety Brodney Poole. So I'm addressing their defensive line issues with Fletcher Cox out of Mississippi State, a guy that's going to be a perfect 5 technique, and he can get pushed from that 5 technique position, and that's going to allow everyone else to be a lot better, especially those outside rushers. Staying in the NFC East, the Eagles own the 15th selection. I'm going with Devin Steele out of Penn State. I like this guy a lot. I think he's actually the best 4-3 defensive tackle, the best 3 technique in this draft. All he does is disrupt the line of scrimmage, disrupt blocking assignments, live in the backfield, and that's going to make those linebackers of the Philadelphia Eagles look a lot better this year if they can get pushed from within. Sliding up I-95, the New York Jets, I think they address defense with this pick. Courtney Upshaw out of Alabama, linebacker. The Jets need a youth movement in that linebacking core, and Upshaw brings youth and a lot of talent. Should help bolster that Jets front 7. This is the first of 2 selections for the Cincinnati Bengals, and yes, they just signed Jason Allen, but you can't pass up on a talent like Janoris Jenkins out of North Alabama by way of University of Florida. This guy has amazing instincts, great ball skills, and has that physicality, that peskiness that you want out of a cornerback. The Chargers own the 18th pick, and I'm going defense with Nick Perry out of USC, outside rusher, redshirt junior. Best football is ahead of him. This guy's only going to get better, and the Chargers also need a lot of youth on their defense, especially in the linebacking core, and Nick Perry will be a nice fixture for their front 7 and allowing this defense to get back to where they were a couple of years ago. The Bears adding Brandon Marshall, that leads me to believe they won't go receiver with this pick, so they have to go with Whitney Merciless out of Illinois, a guy that had 14 sacks last year. Some may say he's a one-year wonder, but it's tough to get 14 sacks in any division, no matter who you are. So when he has that type of pass rushing ability, you put him in a situation where he can get after the quarterback. That's why I think the Bears defense is an ideal fit for Merciless. Titans are next up, and I know they just added Cameron Wembley to their defensive line, but why not continue to add pass rushers? Quentin Copples out of UNC. He has the size that can kick down inside in certain pass rush situations, so now you have more pass rushers on the field. I think this guy will be motivated. He hears all the rumors about him taking plays off at UNC. Look for a motivated Copples to star on that defensive line for Tennessee. The Bengals are back on the clock, and I'm giving them running back Trent Richardson out of Alabama. Reason being, they need help in the backfield. They haven't re-signed Cedric Benson. Trent Richardson is a guy that can start from day one, and I'm always going to say this, reminds me a lot of Ernest Biner. Does everything exceptionally well. He can run, he can catch, he can also block, and I love the way he breaks tackles. That's just going to help out Andy Dalton in that young, explosive offense. The Browns are back on the clock, and I'm also giving these guys backfield help. Lamar Miller is a true game breaker, a breakaway threat, something that they sorely need out there in Cleveland. Now you just added Justin Blackman and Lamar Miller to that offense, teaming up with last year's rookie Greg Little, and Cleveland's offense will look a hell of a lot better than it did last season, and Colt McCoy in return will also look better. So I think that's where they're going to go. I think that's where the Browns have to go. Continue to add weapons around McCoy and watch how better he looks. Next up are the Detroit Lions, and with the re-signing of Stephen Tulloch, it allows them to attack their secondary with Drake Kirkpatrick. He's going to come in and be a hybrid type of guy. Can play corner, can play safety, but he's going to fit perfect in Jim Sports' defense. The Steelers are next on the clock, and I have them going defense with Donta Hightower. When you have a 3-4 defense, you have to stack linebackers, and this guy will be a great one at the next level. He lands in a great spot and is going to provide instant impact for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Broncos just signed Peyton Manning, so they have to give him weapons. They have to get a deep threat, honestly. Kendall Wright provides that for that offense. You look at now with Eric Decker, Demarius Thomas, Kendall Wright can take the top off of defense. Don't let the 40 time fool you. He has game speed, game acceleration, and is a tremendous football player, and the league needs more football players. Kendall Wright provides that. He's going into a great situation out there in Denver. The Houston Texans are next up on the clock, and I think they go offense as well. They go receiver, Ruben Randall. I've been on this pick for a long time. Big playmaker right here, 6'4", 215 pounds. Tremendous acceleration, can catch the football with his hands, and has the speed to pull away from defenders. That game speed, that football speed. Him and Andre Johnson will be two wide receivers that no one will want to face next season. Another team armed with 2 first-round selections, the New England Patriots. I have them going with Andre Branch, defensive end out of Clemson. Can also play outside rusher in a 3-4, so he has that scheme versatility that Bill Belichick loves, and he is also a very good football player. The Packers are next up, and they need help up front. That's why I'm giving them the young guy, Michael Brockers out of LSU. Is going to play the 5 technique, does a great job of getting pushed from within, and I think you add him to that defensive front, he's going to do a great job for the Packers and allow those outside rushers free reign to the quarterback. Next are the Baltimore Ravens, and I have them going with offensive lineman Peter Cons, who was a center at Wisconsin. I know they re-signed Matt Burke, but Cons is going to be his future replacement, but for the interim, he can also play guard, so that way you kill 2 birds with 1 stone, because he just lost Ben Grubbs to the New Orleans Saints, so Cons is going to come in and probably start from day 1 for the Ravens. 49ers have been active in free agency on the offensive side of football, so I think they go defense, and I think they take a chance on a guy in George Iloka out of Boise State that can play free or strong safety. He has ball skills, he can tackle, and I think that gives them the versatility to put him in those passing situations to help him out, to help match up well with the passing teams like Green Bay, like New Orleans. George Iloka is a guy that may creep into the first round. Patriots are back on the clock with their second pick, and I give them Mark Barron out of Alabama, the safety that can come in right away and play opposite of Patrick Chung. 2 hard-hitting guys right there with good football intelligence, and I think that's what they need in the back half of that defense. Out the first round are the Super Bowl champs, New York Giants. They address their glaring weakness on offense, which is tight end. Dwayne Allen, I like him a lot out of Clemson. Reminds me a lot of Keith Jackson that played for the Packers and Eagles during the heyday of the 80s and 90s. I think he can provide that type of versatility for the Giants offense and do a great job of moving the chains on 3rd downs. Moving on to the second round, the Falcons are on the clock, and I'm giving them offensive tackle Mike Adams. This is going to help bolster that offensive line. They have a weak spot at the tackle spot, and I think Adams is a guy that has the versatility, has the athleticism, and has the mean streak that you want. This guy clearly wants to play tackle, and that's what you want out of an offensive lineman. I think he's going to do a great job for the Falcons at the next level. Defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo looks to get pressure with his front 4. That's why I'm giving the Saints Jarrell Worthy. I think you add him next to Cedric Ellis. That's going to help bolster that defensive front and aiding in them stopping the run and also getting pressure on the quarterback without having to blitz. The Raiders are all the way in the 5th round. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but let's say it does. They have to take Vontaze Burfict. He can also play strong side linebacker where they have a weakness. And I think this guy, if he has his head on straight, will be a star at the next level.